Our next up is actually a fireside chat. I really don't know what she's going to ask, but I'm excited to invite up here Travis Hess, president of BigCommerce, Mr. President himself, and Sharon Gee, the SVP Sales and Partnerships at Feedonomics. So thank you guys, everyone. I'm looking forward to this next.
Thank you, Rick. It's been really wonderful to be collaborating with you and your team over the past number of months on the product feed print white paper. Thank you for the time and energy in the work that you've done there. I think what we'd love to do is have a little bit of a chat around the industry. It's really unique to have people who have been in the industry as long as both of you have and seen the ups and downs and the changes. And certainly before COVID, there was kind of a semblance of a specific kind of normal. During COVID was obviously very different, and now it seems like we've settled into kind of a new normal in commerce. What would you say, as our brands and retail partners prepare for holiday, are the things that you believe that you should help them recommend to keep top of mind in advance of the upcoming holiday season? Rick?
Yeah, I think to start out is really availability, and if you haven't already gotten your products into FBA, if you need an FBA for a promotion, it's almost too late at this point. Amazon really moved up there. And so I would just say availability for promotions and in your stock and warehouse. I always say availability is marketing. If you're not in stock, then that's kind of everything else is gone. Second is really test and learn. I would say find 3 or 4 different opportunities, whether they're promotions or channels, or even new ways of working to save yourself money, trying out a new partner. Everyone thinks of holiday as the place where you stop changing, which never made any sense to me. Like this whole developer idea of the code freeze, everything needs to stay the same as we did 6 months ago. To me, this is when consumers are buying. This is the most time you can learn ever in the entire year. And so if you're not trying 2 or 3 new things, I think you're really missing on a golden opportunity.
What about you, Travis? What does the new normal bring? What should people be thinking about in advance of holiday?
Yeah, I agree. Just because it's holiday, I would think it's the time, maybe the best time to experiment in many capacities. And I think experimentation's the new norm. I talked a little bit yesterday about, customers being the new channel. Brands have to go where their customers want to engage them, and they need to do that immersively and with value. And part of that is experimentation. Even if it's to experiment to fail, if it's done quickly, I would consider it a success. And I think testing, learning, trying new things, creating some semblance of organizational agility to be able to do this stuff and just working it in to the culture and the dogma of the org. I think that's the biggest thing is really changing yourselves to embrace this concept and dogma around agility and experimentation, knowing that you're not always going to be right. And I think the more you kind of put yourself out there and create availability, the more efficacy you're ultimately going to drive. So
I love what you're saying around organizational readiness and what our teams need to do in order to kind of take advantage of the new normal. We're seeing a lot of silos need to break down between marketing and the wholesale team and that marketplaces team. And social commerce is a jump ball. Is it the marketing team or the operations and marketplaces team who handles that? Or does it fit cleanly within the direct-to-consumer business? What you're making a recommendation there around testing and learning and understanding how those teams need to work together in order to get the most efficacy on the channels, I think makes a lot of sense. And one of the biggest challenges that we've seen is kind of the inertia of helping the teams move in that direction. Do you have any recommendations, Rick, around how people can help build that business case internally?
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned about the org and building that business case. First of all, you need the right people around the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that strikes me in a lot of the client work I'm doing now is the traditional organization is a merchant makes the product, and then we're like, okay, here's our line for the year. Let's throw it over the wall. Let marketing figure out what's the demand going to be. The new organization has to be more community-oriented, where the people, to your point, social commerce, who owns it? No one even knows anymore. And so the idea that this cross-functional team needs to be there, and commerce is ultimately just about math. Traffic times conversion times AOV equals revenue. That's all, we shouldn't complicate it more than that. And so if you're making a business case, you need to think about what are you trying to address? Are you trying to gain a new customer that you haven't heard before? Maybe that's a marketplace. Maybe that's a new campaign for someone to your website. Are you trying to make existing customers buy more? Like the person who bought 6 months ago, are you trying to make them buy again? Why are you trying to make them buy again? What would motivate them to buy again? Is it just a promotion, or is it something that makes sure you understand them? So that kind of gets into the life cycle marketing. Do you have a trigger that like reminds them, like, hey, it's your daughter's birthday. This is something you need to do. And then AOV, like, yeah, you can bundle and upsell and cross-sell, but there's just only so many things you can do about your AOV. If you sell a $50 product, you're not going to certainly start selling $100 products. That's just usually not the case. But ultimately, those are the things that I think about when I think about business case.
I love what you're saying, and it kind of, we've heard a lot of the illities on the stage. We've heard about agility, profitability, and discoverability across channels as major themes from the past few sessions over the past couple of days. I know that agility is something you've spoken a lot about. Travis, what are some of the areas of investment or focus that you believe our brand and retail partner teams need to think about in order to really be agile enough in order to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented across channels?
Yeah, I think you think of the Shawshank line of get busy living or get busy dying. You know, I think back to that growth mindset that, again, is steeped in, again, I think organizational agility. I used kind of a cheeky Maslow analogy yesterday of self-actualization. I can't tell you, as a legacy agency person, the biggest barrier to advancement and innovation is just cultural dynamics organizationally, of just not everyone being on the same page. I think human capital is something that's also dramatically understated, right? I think really good talent wants to be aligned with brands and organizations that share their values, that realize like innovation, disruption, and agility are super important. Nothing is worse than sitting in some large bureaucratic org, feeling like you're not leaving your fingerprints on something or able to get shit through the goose, so to speak. And I think maybe a bad analogy, how many geese are here
Love
this
it.
time of year, but whatever.
In Austin, it's bats.
It is bats. Yeah, I mean, there's lizards here too and
Yeah.
stuff. I've noticed. I've been down.
We digress.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole nother conversation. I think conceptually, you know, harboring in on that, the culture of embracing growth, because if you are not growing, you're going to become very quickly irrelevant. And I think just that mindset, the communication, organizational alignment as well, is to the execution at speed and at pace to measure success is also as important as anything else. And I think the technology has come so far so fast. You look at, obviously, you know, selfishly from a Feedo perspective and what we're trying to do more broadly, I think a lot of it is centered around agility, speed, and efficacy, independent of channel, to go optimize that revenue and measure how well that's doing. And I think some folks have the ability to do more of that internally and outsource less. Some have very little ability to do it internally and need to be cognizant it's not a core competency and need to be able to outsource. I think there's a number of different flexible models that can go achieve things at scale very, very quickly. And I think just being true to yourself and understanding what it is you're good at. And if you're not good at it, do you build it? Do you outsource it? Whatever it is, get to that North Star as quickly as possible.
I like the theme of you need to be able to have technology partners who are locally relevant but globally scalable, so that you can test, learn, fail fast, and you know, take advantage of, you know, these new programs that many of these channels are rolling out, and they're rolling them out really quickly because you know, the rate of investment, but also you know, new features that are coming out that we can take advantage of, whether it's through various different AI technologies. What we've found is kind of this data harmonization focus in order to be able to feed the fruits and vegetables to the AI that delivers conversion, whether that's traffic or whether it's orders across a, you know, a third-party marketplace. Rick, you've kind of seen an evolution of this over time. Profitability is something you talk an awful lot about. Tell us a little bit around how it can be challenging to understand how your SKUs are performing across all of those various different channels and how you're profitable. How would you go about starting to think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the short answer is you have to measure down to the SKU level. You can't just sort of peanut butter. Like, I would say the first two big mistakes that I see when I look at, I would say, a unit contribution P&L from a brand. One is their marketing. They usually have a contribution margin database that they're maintaining that their CFO works on. But usually the marketing spend is imported into this system that then applies it across all the products equally, no matter which ones have been benefiting from the optimization. And then the same thing on fulfillment. There are certain items that are more costly to ship, certain items that are cheaper to ship. And so just making sure that your profitability analysis at the SKU level is something that is repeatable for you weekly, monthly. That's number one. Travis said it perfectly. We're in an age where there's so much technology that technology just needs to get out of the freaking way and just let the marketers and the operators execute. Because if you're fiddling with the tech, like, you're already dead. Like, the tech just needs to have already been done. And those are the things that I think about, like, trying to just get a simple system that works. Don't overcomplicate it.
This really speaks to the theme you had yesterday where, gone are the days where it's a 9-month implementation necessarily of a big bang e-commerce replatform or implementing new systems. The ability to make sure that you can get in market quickly, test, and then make changes based on what the real-time data says to you is really important. And we're seeing that in some of the new programs that partners like Amazon Today are launching. We saw them on stage during this session. What are some of the challenges and the ways that you might recommend our merchants overcome them when they're trying out new programs like Amazon Today, or whether it's new programs or new features that Meta or TikTok or others are rolling out? It can be challenging to kind of get over the inertia of adopting those new programs. What are some of the recommendations that you make when you're considering, hey, should we get started in this channel? Should we take the plunge? How many of our SKUs should we put up there? Like, how do you think about the channel mix and then the SKU mix across those channels? What are your recommendations there?
Yeah, the first thing is just to avoid the decision paralysis. If you've been thinking about it for more than 3 to 6 months, stop. Either do it or stop freaking talking about it. Rule 1. Rule 2 is don't give it to the most busy person who's going to ignore it because that's not where they're going to make their quota. Rule 2. Rule 3 is give it to a new up-and-coming person that's going to be their sole focus. Someone who likes evaluating new things, someone who isn't weighed down by having to hit their Amazon number this year. That person is going to be less likely to try a new channel because that channel is actually a threat to their paycheck, if you think about it. And so I think thinking from the organizational point of view, getting out of this paralysis mindset and getting more into the experimentation mindset, like, if we don't evolve this business, we're going to die. If we're 3 to 5 years and we're doing the same things in the same way on the same channels, you look at any of the charts that I presented, the world's not staying the same. So if you're staying the same, something's going wrong.
We've talked a lot about kind of recommendations and things to think about for the brands and retailers in the room. This is obviously a giant ecosystem of technology partners and agencies who are also in the room who are critical to the success. And like you said, they need to be near invisible in order to be able to just help all of our joint clients execute. Travis, you obviously come from an amazing services background. Talk a little bit about what you see the evolving role of the agency in partnership with technology partners to be in this kind of new normal where, let's get the tech out of the way as quickly as possible. What do you see that as that new role of agencies in the relation to an omnichannel merchant strategy?
Yeah, listen, I don't think it's lost on the service providers in the room of how much it's changed and been disrupted. I think you even look at something 5 years ago on the platform side, the length of time to deliver whatever the requirements were and the services revenues associated with it are dramatically different than what it is today. Back then you talk in terms of semesters as opposed to months or weeks. And I think that being said, just look at basic economics as a services provider. If what was once 12 months and $2 million worth of services revenue is now 3 months and $200,000 of service revenue, just go put together a resource allocation for shits and grins in Excel. It's pretty hard to staff that with full-time people. So by definition, you're fractionally staffing. That's going to create context switching. It's going to create fatigue. It's going to create quality issues. And quite frankly, talk about trying to, optimize utilization, right, and get everybody at 70, 80, sometimes 90%, really, really tough sledding. And you combine that with, again, indecision, to Rick's point, with brands and clients, taking time to make decisions, or just the lack of maybe the same amount of velocity in the space as it relates to at least the platforming side of the business. You've got to get to a recurring revenue model. You cannot grow a services business without recurring revenue. It is impossible. Like, especially now, 10 years ago, maybe if you picked the right horse, and just had enough on-prem bullshit to deal with, and, forced upgrades and managed service and things like that, those days are long over. You've got to get, everything is fast and agile. And I don't mean in the way you deliver. That's nonsense too. Nobody delivers commerce from a software perspective, like delivery perspective, in an agile methodology. But what I mean by all of this is frame whatever your capabilities are around value to the client, right? Because the client needs to drive value and create value creation to their client. So that needs to be violently aligned. And then those services need to both operate against optimizing. I use optimizing revenue a lot. And again, it's broad intentionally. That's top line and bottom line. It should be both. And that has to be in a consumable model back to the clients that you work with. So how do I drive ongoing measurable value in a capacity that is consumable by a client, right?
Yeah.
Fiscally, organizationally, operationally. So to Rick's point, like, who are you working with? How are we driving efficacy? How are we able to operate in a way that's able to drive value very, very quickly and justify what it is that we're doing to justify our existence? And then continuing to keep that mindset of prioritizing whatever that framework is and what we're delivering in an ongoing capacity is something that I think everyone is either there or needs to get there sooner rather than later.
I think that's excellent advice. Do you have anything you'd add in
Yeah,
terms of?
I mean, look, if you're an agency owner and you're not thinking like a client, your clients are either entrepreneurs or business owners, or represent themselves to be. And if you're focused on pitching your next big project, you're already lost. I think, because that's not what your client is looking for. Your client is looking for solutions to problems. I would say in the next 10 years, the biggest thing that I think a lot of people still don't understand, people used to say like, oh, I put up a website, like, if the technology is great and I have great SEO, I'm going to win. Like, again, to the things that's like long past. Like, in the next generation, media plus data equals commerce. And so if you're not aligned with like media or data meaning helping people acquire new customers, helping people learn about their customers, helping people move their customers from decision purchase 1 to consideration to purchase 2, 3, 4 for different use cases. Those are things that I think agencies should be moving into a recurring model, because that's something that was going to help. The brand is never going to turn down a project that helps them learn more about their customers. They will turn down a project that's building a sandcastle on their website.
That's excellent context, I think. I want to wrap it up, and this is kind of our final thoughts on the topics. We know that discoverability is really critical, and you talked a lot in your presentation and in the work that we've done in the white paper around being able to make sure that you are where your shopper is. And that used to be really challenging, right? It used to mean you'd have to send catalog and make sure that the signal and the first party and third party pixels were working properly, and catalog and inventory and orders and all of the various different technological things. That data handshake didn't exist between the systems, and it used to be big systems integration projects in order to make sure the data handshake was working for that the real-time data to be flowing between those systems. And now, luckily, a lot of those partnerships have existed, and so the barrier to entry in order to do really cool things with real-time inventory data exists now.
Right.
What are some of the opportunities that you would say are the ones that people should be seizing on as it relates to discoverability across channels as they're building their 2025 strategy and planning?
Yeah, I think discoverability, when I think about discoverability, first of all, I think about just showing up, being on channels that you're not today. So ultimately, businesses are not about growing revenue. Businesses are about growing customers. And if you understand how to gain customers and get them to do what you want to do, then you follow the chain and put the customer at the center of your business. If you need to make your products more discoverable, first you need to understand where the hell they're looking for your products and being honest about it. Like, because you personally don't like Amazon or Shein or Temu or TikTok, it's irrelevant. It has to do with your customers. And so when I think about discoverability, I think about it like put yourself in the mindset of your buyers. Where is your growth going to come from next year? Is it going to come from the same customers who bought last year? Or do you need to introduce yourself to new audiences? So I think discoverability also needs to have kind of a growth. We talked about the growth mindset. Needs to have a growth lens to it. So like, is most of your new growth, is that your existing customers buying more, or is it new customers buying differently? And so that discoverability, that will then lead your channel journey. What channels do I need to show up on and how?
Travis?
Yeah, I agree, and I know we're running tight on time, so I'll keep it brief. I couldn't agree more. I think value creation to where your customers want to engage the brand and measuring that objectively is the key to all of this, right? Be willing to experiment, but also through objectivity, follow the data, follow the instincts, harbor it all on this mindset of growth and value creation to customers, because at the end of the day, if you're not generating value to the customers, you're not going to keep the loyal ones that you have, and you're certainly not going to attract new ones. So again, that customer-centric mindset I love. I could listen to you talk forever, by the way, Rick.
Thank you. It
Really,
warms
this has
my
been
heart,
lovely.
Travis.
Yeah. But that, and I think we're all saying the same thing, and it's aligned with kind of everything else, is agility, relevance, authenticity, objectivity, right? And just embracing this concept around experimentation and speed, I think is the new norm.
That's a wonderful summary on the new norm. Rick, thanks so much for joining us today
Thank
at
you.
BigSummit. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.